Hello and welcome to this video on making your own butterbeer. Butterbeer is the ubiquitous beverage of the Harry Potter universe. It could be found in just about every magically oriented pub, diner and adult social event.
Norwegian style sausage.
No, not that.
We hurtled down, we hit what must have been
No, sit beside me. Okay.
Something to drink?
3 butterbeers and some ginger in mine, please.
sledging, but I was still hurtling down.
Oh, bloody hell. Slick gin.
Honestly, Ronald, they're only holding hands. And snogging.
I'd like to leave.
What? You can't be serious.
There are two main varieties available to be made at home: a child-friendly version and an adult version. One has alcohol while the other does not. Butterbeer was a popular visiting beverage, and the taste is often described as a bit like less sickly sweet butterscotch. It's served at many occasions throughout the wizarding world of Harry Potter. It is supposed to have a very slight alcoholic content. This is one reason the students of Hogwarts are allowed to buy it when visiting Hogsmeade. It is said to have been produced between 1985 and 1986 at the Three Broomsticks. At that time, they were making a very sweet version of butterbeer, and this was received well in general. There is another version called Butterbeer 1707, which is said to be a vintage variety kept in barrels in the back of the inn. This makes it relatively consistent with how beer could be produced and aged within the real world, and therefore we can try to make our own. Let's begin with a child-friendly version, as it will help direct what we use in the alcoholic version suitable for adults. This has been based on and modified from an online recipe that is linked in the description. You will require varying quantities of light or dark brown sugar, water, butter, salt, cider vinegar, cream, a rum or similar extract, and creaming soda. In a small pan, combine the brown sugar and water, creating a sort of caramel. Bring this to a boil and cook it. Heat this until it reads 115 degrees centigrade. Once at this temperature, add butter, salt, vinegar, and some of the heavy cream. Stir this in and then set it aside to cool. Once it has cooled to room temperature, add in a small amount of rum extract and stir. This will act as the base of your ongoing recipe. In order to use it, you need to combine more brown sugar with your mixture, along with the remaining cream. Mix this until it is not only thickened, but is completely whipped. This should form neat peaks. Divide this equally between the glasses, and then add a small quantity of creaming soda to each glass. This should form something similar to a float. While not necessarily the most appealing of products, it does seem to fit with what is depicted in the movies. This recipe also makes obvious the need for certain flavors. The focuses are on keeping it buttery, caramel, and cream based. These are balanced by the presence of rum, vinegar, and carbonation. It would be rather hard to try and recreate these entirely from scratch, and while you can experience something to the same effect at various amusement parks, that defeats the purpose of making it ourselves. Fortunately, we do have the means of making these work in a more traditional beer-based recipe. starting with the traditional buttered beer, we can modify more modern vanilla and caramel ales. Normally, you rely on a combination of light malt extract, wheat extract, and caramel crystals. Either Belgian or American caramel crystals. In a pinch, candy sugar can be used. This creates most of the caramel, butter, and rum-like flavors that you want. The bitter element of vinegar is produced with the careful blending of hops varieties. Now you have the basic fermentables in your butter beer, it is time for yeast selection. Choose an ale yeast, but ferment it at a low temperature. This ensures production of the essential diacetyl or butterscotch flavor compounds. If you are going to use a known diacetyl producing yeast, you need to take certain precautions. The big one is not to use an excessive amount of light or medium malts. These will create problems with how the flavor profile is generated in the end. Too much of them, and you'll wind up with flavors that overwhelm everything, and it just tastes sickly sweet. Mind you, you do also want to avoid anything that is going to prevent the hops from having its effect. Using a recipe that is defined by its high bitterness units will help to curb that overly sweet mixture and create a better balanced profile. A few suggestions can be found below in the description. Ferment this mixture as you would most beer. Now that you have a final product that is a beer, you take this and you combine it with egg yolks, sugar, nutmeg, and butter. Put these in a pot on a low heat. Ensure the heat remains low the entire time as you do not want the eggs to scramble. Continue to stir it as it warms and the contents dissolves. Take this off the heat and whisk in more butter. Then you distribute it into glasses to drink. The alcoholic version is sourced from an old recipe for something that is called buttered beer. Historically, buttered beer was very much real, but it had more in common with mulled wine or Glühwein, a wine that was cooked with herbs and spices added to make it more flavorful and appealing. To be honest, the Harry Potter books display an absolute ignorance of how beer is made. This is obvious from the inclusion of butter in any kind of beer product. The lipids in butter will make a good beer head impossible. This is because they interfere with the way everything cross-links to form a foam. The means of getting around this are relatively simple if you are willing to use a quirk of yeast and the right ingredients and then modify it after the fact. That is, if you want something that is both fermented and alcoholic. If you want something that is not alcoholic, you can make a cocktail of flavors to suit your impression of what butterbeer should taste like. It seems from reading the books and lore that either butterbeer is non-alcoholic or it is a low-alcohol beer. The recreations and recipes given are a broad guideline that can be changed to suit. In the same way, you can either increase or decrease the amount of sugar used in the fermented product to adjust the alcohol content. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it interesting, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please post any comments, questions, or suggestions below.